Welcome to the IELTS Reading lesson. Today we will study IELTS 18 Test 2 Passage 1, Stonehenge. This article has 13 questions. The first 8 are note completion questions. The last 5 are true or false questions. We can divide the questions into 3 types: synonym replacement, logic comparison, and keyword location. Knowing these types helps you find answers faster. Note completion uses keywords. True/false needs careful comparison. This article has 9 paragraphs. It is an explanatory text about Stonehenge. From passage 1 to 3, introduce the construction stages and early history of Stonehenge. From passage 4 to 5, discuss how the stones were moved, including archaeology and geology theories. From passage 6 to 9, introduce the builders and the purpose of Stonehenge. Note completion questions are mainly in passages 1 to 5. True/false questions are in passages 6 to 9. Next is the note completion for Q1-8. One-word limit, mostly extracted directly from the text. Let's look at question 1. It asks what tools Neolithic Britons used to dig a massive circular ditch. Clue words are primitive tools and fashioned out of, which tell us to look for the material of the tools. Locate paragraph 2, scan for words near primitive tools and fashioned out of. The text says fashioned out of deer antlers. Deer antlers is the answer. This word is directly given in the original text, no replacement needed. So the answer to question 1 is deer antlers. Let's look at question 2. It asks what might have been inside the deep pits. The clue words are deep pits and held. Locate to the end of paragraph 2. The original text says deep pits may have once held a ring of timber posts. The answer word is directly given. So the answer to question 2 is timber posts. Let's look at question 3. The statement says the builders used tree trunks to make sledges and rollers to move the bluestones. The clue word is tree trunks. It directly tells us the material used to make the sledges and rollers. Let's go to paragraph 4. The first sentence mentions this long-standing theory. The original text says, Stonehenge's builders fashioned sledges and rollers out of tree trunks. The answer is directly given here. So the answer to question 3 is tree trunks. Let's look at question 4. The statement says a more recent hypothesis suggests they used huge wicker baskets with ball bearings and long grooved planks, and were pulled by what to move the bluestones. The blank comes after hauled by, so we need a word for an animal or a force that pulls things. Go to the end of paragraph 4, we see the phrase hauled by oxen. The original text directly gives the word oxen. No replacement is needed. So the answer to question 4 is oxen. Let's look at question 5. It asks what carried the bluestones from Wales to Salisbury Plain. The blank comes after it was and before not humans, so we need a singular noun here. Let's go to paragraph 5 and find who or what carried the bluestones. The text says it was glaciers, not humans, that carried the bluestones. The answer word glaciers appears directly here. So the answer to question 5 is glaciers. Let's look at question 6. The question says that in the 17th century, archaeologist John Aubrey claimed Stonehenge was the work of druids, who had important roles in Celtic society. The clue words are 17th century and John Aubrey, which help us find the location quickly. We locate paragraph 8. It starts with who were the builders, then we see 17th century and John Aubrey. The text says Aubrey made the claim that Stonehenge was the work of druids. The answer word druids appears directly in the text. So the answer to question 6 is druids. Let's look at question 7. It asks about the agreed purpose of Stonehenge. The blank is after burial, so we need a noun. The clue words are consensus and burial ground. The blank is after burial, so we need a noun for a place. Let's go to paragraph 10. Find the sentence with consensus and burial ground. The text says Stonehenge once served the function of burial ground. The word ground comes right after burial. This word is directly given in the original text, so no replacement is needed. So the answer to question 7 is burial. Let's look at question 8. The question asks what Stonehenge was thought to operate as. The blank needs a noun. The clue phrase is operated as a form of, which is directly followed by a noun. Locate paragraph 11. Find the name of the astronomer Hawkins. The original text says operated as a form of calendar. The answer word calendar appears directly. So the answer to question 8 is calendar. Let's look at question 9. The statement says that during the third phase of construction, sandstone slabs were placed in both the outer areas and the middle of Stonehenge. The key clue words are outer areas and middle. Locate paragraph 7. The scanning landmark words are outer crescent or ring and center. The original text says, sandstone slabs were arranged into an outer crescent or ring, and some were assembled into trilithons that stand tall in the center. The question's outer areas is a synonym for outer crescent or ring, and middle is a synonym for center. This is a clear example of synonym replacement. So the answer to question 9 is true. Let's look at question 10. There is scientific proof that the bluestones stood in the same spot until approximately 1600 BCE. Key clue words, stood in the same spot and until 1600 BCE. Locate paragraph 7, looking for descriptions about the bluestones' position and time. The original text says, the bluestones in particular being repositioned multiple times. The statement says stood in the same spot, fixed position, but the text says repositioned multiple times, moved many times. This is a clear opposite meaning, a direct contradiction. So the answer to question 10 is false. Let's look at question 11. John Aubrey's claim about Stonehenge was supported by 20th century findings. Key clue words, supported by 20th century findings. Locate paragraph 8. Scan for landmark word, radiocarbon dating. The original text says, radiocarbon dating demonstrated that Stonehenge stood more than 1,000 years before the Celts inhabited the region. The statement says 20th century findings supported Aubrey, but the text says radiocarbon dating showed Stonehenge was over 1,000 years older than the Celts, directly disproving Aubrey. This is an opposite replacement. So the answer to question 11 is false. Let's look at question 12. Objects discovered at Stonehenge seem to indicate that it was constructed by a number of different groups of people. Key clue words in the statement, objects discovered, indicate different groups of people. Locate to paragraph 9. Scanning landmark words in the original text, bones, tools and other artifacts. The original text says, bones, tools and other artifacts found on the site seem to support this hypothesis. The phrase objects discovered in the statement is a synonym for bones, tools and other artifacts in the text, indicate is a synonym for support this hypothesis. This is a typical synonym replacement. So the answer to question 12 is true. Let's look at question 13. Criticism of Gerald Hawkins' theory about Stonehenge has come mainly from other astronomers. Key clue words, criticism, mainly, other astronomers. Locate paragraph 11, scan for the landmark word, critics. The original text uses, critics maintain that Stonehenge's builders probably lacked the knowledge, or that England's dense cloud cover would have obscured their view. The passage mentions critics but does not specify their profession. The statement says mainly from other astronomers, which is not supported. Also, the passage does not say critics are not astronomers, so it is not false. So the answer to question 13 is not given. Now we move to the trick summary. We will review 3 common traps and use real questions as examples. Trick 1, opposite meaning. The question says A, but the text says B. They have opposite meanings. For example, questions 10 and 11. The question says A, but the text says B. They are directly opposite, so the answer is false. Trick 2, wrong subject. The question talks about subject A, but the text talks about subject B. They are different. For example, question 10. The question mentions one subject, but the text mentions a different one. They are not the same, so the answer is false. Trick 3, not mentioned. The question mentions a concept, but the text does not talk about it at all. For example, question 13. The question mentions a concept, but the text does not talk about it at all. So the answer is not given. Summary: when doing true/false/not given questions, first check if the meanings are opposite, then check if the subjects are the same, and finally check if the concept exists in the text. Now we move to the vocabulary summary. We will review important words and paraphrases from the passage. Question 9. Paraphrase. The question says, placed in both the outer areas and the middle. The text says, arranged into an outer crescent or ring, assembled into trilithons that stand tall in the center. Question 12. Paraphrase. The question says, objects discovered at Stonehenge seem to indicate. The text says, bones, tools and other artifacts found on the site seem to support this hypothesis. Completion. Key terms summary: deer antlers, timber posts, tree trunks, oxen, glaciers, druids, burial, calendar. This is the end of the intensive reading for Test 2 Passage 1. I hope these tips are helpful. See you next time.